Hello, black pupils. Ye who know we could beat the branches of government in debate. In other words, how they leave out black people's rights of life. See, they knew at each age of fact, human nature, we would have forgiveness over the identities of the names of the people of the sciences in relativity to their roles with names and influences from off all locations slash estate. Nobody wanted. But they had only not only only been known that and not and sustained, and to use that, but without anyone fathoming, because it built everyone, propagated, only allowed to be, only permitted to be self-valued roles, otherwise being sensed and having been sensed. Also, not understanding that completely, nor the self-valued part. It is manifest that way. Nature holds it that way. They are styles, plural, of getting over on the human species fact human nature preaching method. The fact human nature. As everyone was forced, tricked, hurt, persuaded to have fact human nature, quality aspects, nature of collusion, and or relative to where you are sensed. Even if you are a majority, a grouping of people, even as a majority, even if it is every single person from an entire country together, even if it is any grouping of countries coming from this, they use the words humanity. The suburbs, there are houses in suburbs that were designed before America's founders were born, with laws that show that there was slavery against everyone sickly distinctly. There were laws that if you even found out, you heard someone speaking about building infrastructure outside of internationally monitored conversations, and you didn't tell on them, they hurt you and everyone around you and worse. And so that it had been sustained roles since before. Part of the reason we don't, in other words, nature clearer than day communicates Native American rights are totally, the syntax on it is totally other. But just like Black history is led by having Black people's whites of eyes and nature's identity itself showing us, look, even other species bodies have two eyes, different distinctly, but also non-distinctly. And look, you guys didn't invent that, and the other species didn't invent that. This identity of value/value progression is discernible. The hyper invisible, but still discernible. The same one conjuncted to all parts of speech as the invisible, but still discernible. But then as the hyper invisible, but still discernible. As to why and to how we need to appreciate more than 5 words. I mean, more than one word for a verb. And why and how the participle natures are grouped. And they have relativity to time. But that's forever nature, no. And same thing with the infinitive. That's why, in other words, which is if you put the participle to, the word to before a verb, discern how it changes the nature. Its nature of relativity / hyper relativity. No, relativity is not a theory. See, from off the just like people could be, countries could be tortured, extorted, forced, tricked, hurt, and persuaded to roles with slavery, with torture, extortion, slavery methods / s. Only known having been roles with it are only known having been styles of fact, cheap nature, quality aspects in nature, used remotely by a breaching method that used remotely all location areas and state, everywhere the species body has a body standing, as a criminal re-engineering of the republic for which we stand, and of the forms of government and names, human species system, as exceptions that it relied upon. Because the republic for which we stand, with pantheism, there is a it is hyper evidential, it is more probable, and it is more practical to convict to theorize, let alone to convict. Pantheism had been led by this identity, that singular identity that we can observe as a singular identity. It comes with a distinct identity of relationship to itself. The same one that is non-distinctly its relationship to itself /S. As our species body too, know distinctly from the other species bodies. And non-distinctly. And simultaneously, but also /hyper-simultaneous. And the slash is relative because there are also invisible, hyper-invisible, but still discernible parts of itself. Just like there are invisible, but still discernible parts, as the parts of speech, as of English grammar. But all parts of English grammar, including down to the finite details of where and how the letters are drawn. Buck sings this song. There was a Mrs. Riley who was she was my algebra teacher. She said to the class that there were theories, that my algebra class, that there were theories on the letters and that they had other meanings. In my fourth grade class, I knew there was something behind A-E-I-O-U. In other words, excuse me. I'm also the guy who invented alphabetdecipher.com. I have to make it revert over to the ancient gaming system because I had to put it on there because I couldn't figure out how on GoDaddy to get it uploaded. The HTML. In other words, but this can be expanded. This is greater than and more finite than a large language model. And it's with relativity / hyperrelativity. And / relativity is plural, where it is also / hyperrelativity. In other words, it is one identity of hyper-simultaneous that generates all things. And this is what nature itself is demonstrating to us is most probable to theorize, let alone to convict, relative to where and to how matter came about. And there are proofs that the phenomenon of the plurality with different names of gods, it's relative to this, where there's a science of the individual. We don't need to agree about the name of God to follow this science by what is true always, not denying the slightest sequence, no, not denying uses of truths for lies, individually grouped together, or fake motivations, or because it's screen motivations, like relative to where and to how. Other things, others or ourselves, are measured and are maintained also through other apparent motivations, nature's needs, interests, to screen the breaching methods, roles with other things, others ourselves, blame, right, where, and how. Obligations are to blame a human fact, treating nature breaching method as a scientific value with each of the sciences, not just with English, not just with, the law too, not just with history. So you guys have backwards, you want to use your knowledge of good and evil to get over on the principal thing that you have to understand first, how our founders used James Madison's plan. You guys have self-valued rules with use /S of our founders' words, leaving out what they declassified about that. Leaving out about the breaching method /S that they declassified about that. And that nature itself does. Black pupils. Please get them onto paper. In other words, Judge Napolitano is recorded they change and fake the nature of what is written. They're constantly showing how they're already used remotely there, the difference of there or at other locations, the names of the people, the sciences. And overt criminal enterprises, private ones, terrorists, in the countries at the same time. See them using words like extremism and radical. Discern they're going. They're A, therefore B logic. The differences between Republican Democrats. If people cared so passionately against things, or or for those differences, they wouldn't have separated how nature itself, its identity, showing us we have the same color eyes, different color eyes at the same time, because its identity in relation to itself, and the value of that, which is also valuable again to discern how other species' bodies also have two eyes, even fish, distinctly but also non-distinctly, simultaneously / hyper-simultaneously. Done on drugs. So another thing, they have the word drugs. All kinds of drugs and medicines crimes and criminally foreign influence uses of the locations of that stuff and their elements, like apparently at the state corrections offices, are people involved with wire crime, mail crimes, and acting tied to people from off campuses who put fake and changed recorded reality in the campuses, roles with recorded methods of abuses of the kids, of the leaders of the kids, and the difference of that or the ones are the other kids, and the difference of it exploited there or at their homes or at locations at parks or next to it. A whole bunch of people from Wethersfield recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, involved with mayors and former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, and his co-defendants, as people planting evidences at locations and like at parks and next to them. And they'll tell you this. And it's recorded, even though they communicate other and pretend other, which brings up the relativity of their roles with fire departments, with their roles with all these different countries, and the news attaching me to fake conversations with themselves. As one's increasingly people tied to a former Judge Smith is involved with people intercities and at Elm Streets in Rocky Hill and Wethersfield, who have roles with years apart, child abusers, leaders of the kids, who had roles with the kids, and the difference of that, their roles of that, and the court's roles, they all collusions together. Increasingly, these people out of the corrections offices and the state judicial branch offices involved inter and intra campuses, identity theft, fraud, slanders, and they'll tell you that's how they were raised. And sometimes it's their fault, sometimes it's the others that influenced them. And it's manifest that way because that such is recorded having been used remotely. Collusion /S is with use of location /S. Also, relative to the breaching method showed for our country's leaders that they have to hide what their actual value was when they made readings relative to what was said on Facebook, on Twitter, and the difference between that, and on YouTube. There's a Joshua Julian, who's one of the ones involved with a whole bunch of people tied to former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, and to his co-defendants, and to their family members and of his co-defendants and their neighbors and people associated with them that way, with a ground, location, use /S is one of the things that connects a whole bunch of different people and people that know each other, and use /S to the difference. In other words, that there's a hyper-forensic jail. Forgiveness is so we can focus on the predicate acts, which is also the inter-branch. I recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed they have self-value rules with predicate acts, with facts methods, where they fake and change the value of what is said online as digital crime methods, as collusion with fake phone transcripts, changed phone transcripts at police departments, roles with it with names of court, switching names, forging names, also grouped with the police departments that do that, their family members, their motivations at the same time as overt criminal enterprises, private ones. Increasingly, in other words, people at the prisons in the prisons themselves. Inclusions also with names next to the crime scenes, the campuses, and the reported body don't be spots even if it was made up. A Mark Violet, a Justin Klavinskis, and a bunch of other people sought me out that they have roles with to record, confess, demonstrate, confirm. They have a O'Brien family and others associated next to the state capitol, involved with sequence shifts with them. People from other campuses putting fake things in the databases with the people at the campuses that never even communicated with each other, and they're building on that. Has something to do with their corners of streets on those streets too. Rick Paglione said he has something to do with he confirmed, as others, there are people with the name Leahy who have been spreading lies through kids and having them roles with intelligence families. And they have me fake conversations with themselves. And as a kid, there are other people tied to them who did this also with the name Harris. There's a Kevin Harris who's involved with medical and sexual offenders of kids with judges and prosecutors. And people at Quinnipiac University involved with foreign and domestic intelligence, putting fake natures of ties to people, using what is fake recorded and acting to have fake recorded, pretended believe things. Because these are people also collusions at all sides of criminal and civil cases in interbranch switching and forging names. The difference between their guilt roles with that or the intelligence tied to them, and with confessions uses, which are also relative as the hyper evidential. And I'm not a journalist, but I'm a writer who needs to use the hyper evidential. And this presents the delusions too, because we have black people's whites of eyes. We have that left out. We have the breaching method, which is a scientific value that nature shows us true always, is one of the things that slavery was about, let alone slavery and witch trials simultaneously. That had been involved in northern colonies, southern colonies, and then America's founders were born. And they had to leave this entrenched. And we have other communicating for themselves about that. And we have the nature of debate as role self-valued with U/S of what they said, leaving out what they declassified about. Otherwise, that body is sensed, including if that body is a majority of people, including if that body is everyone, black pupils. Again, even if it is a majority of countries. And this is about breaking that system that is hyper-native pure. We don't bring out even black rights, leaving out Native American first, or you get it wrong. It's not opinion. Nature shows that. Who disbelieves that, their logic and their nature are going to be, and with demonstrations of the same things, vaccines. But we need to get that said. So we, in other words, that's why they interbranch, they switch names, forge names, they paint fake. When did they have integrity? But we believe that trust is important. In other words, the difference of their guilt or work criminal enterprise and private ones, is also differentially who's worse in all instances, but increasingly. And the use / that's the difference of that was as important, because one case, one science with free speech proper reveals them all free. The same identity that shows us itself as what is, but it is not ourselves, nor is it the other species' bodies. But anyway, in the way it is, but also now the ways as systems tactical ulterior from its own, that which is hyper native pure, that which is hyper simultaneous. Again, but we have other things, others ourselves, communicate for what nature itself communicates, let alone for nature itself and our founders and other pretended with the natures of positive treatments, and in the nature of debate. It is nature as criminal insidiousness / hyper criminal insidiousness. I am not a lawyer. We have the hyper evidential that can show black pupils. Judge Napolitano, please allow me to observe, allow me to demonstrate how, and you judge if I'm right or wrong, how I could demonstrate how the three branches of government are being and have been used remotely, criminally foreign influenced tactically delusions wrought as victims slash hyper victims, but as victim predators slash hyper predators, exactly the way the breaching method wanted and needs. And in their defense, it has been the same at countries A through Z. And in their defense, they have not been shown what is recorded and known, but they can't go into it without giving away different things at locations, areas, and states. All these countries are shared in ways that we're all supposed to hide lies and lie progressions or blame things that are caused on other things others themselves, but not even real lie progressions. They're just still that knave that can't even be honest or allow honesty with short words proper regarding even the infrastructure that was in place before America's founders were born, because there was a hyper evidential trail that has all along the way layers and layers, hyper additionally, of collusion slash S with a predicate acts with facts delivery system method, if you will. Otherwise, a human fact should be nature breaching method. That was the sum value of the laws at countries A through Z. One that had been perfected from since before modern religious messengers. It had already forced, tricked, hurt, and persuaded the names of the human species body of individual bodies to defend themselves as syntax nature from what they didn't know how to defend this syntax nature properly. And then to defend that. And then to have means to get away with nature's demonstrations of that to themselves, justified by themselves, because it was maintained. More needs to do that, as it is now, growing from this, propagated all to self-cultivated roles. That was entrenched, not just through America's founding. This has already forced all modern names, A through Z, to entertain all groupings of humanity's names and all humanity voicings as systems entertaining locations, areas, and states as only known. Tactical as systems tactical terrier from nature, which uses not just the difference between each age of correlation nature, but the value of it, its way, which in other words, we could entertain systems ignoring how it uses positive and negative in the same ways we do. And with its identity of relativity, with value, having relativity just like identity to positive and negative simultaneously, slash hyper simultaneously. So here's the cell body, cell nucleus, cell wall. The wall. This is how we build nature, we sense. How could we not have a game? We make a game out of all the negatives tied to the borders. In other words, and we stack meat because we all long to counter the same semi-ancient breaching method that clearer than day we all could discern. Just people fake and change people's words when they speak on the predicate acts associated with it, or the predicate acts method. Black pupils. That's why one of the means to discern it is because whoever tries to debate, I'm not even a lawyer, anyone tries to debate that if you have black pupils, whites of eyes, in other words, all this time, and you could see, in other words, and you had even a broken American history taught to you, you could discern the breaching method involved here and where and how there were obligations by the experts, names of the people of the sciences, to not leave out where and how we have black pupils, whites of eyes, and a breaching method reassigned and forbid what communications with that is about and was about. And anyone who tried to go against that, even if it was a majority of people, even if it was everybody, now they're as syntax nature in a world of more than 100 countries and, countless bodies of the individual species body, all being shown that they need to react to the real causes of negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures. And only capable of doing it exactly with the breaching method, propagated only known to have been. And then as styles incapable of affording the short words, let alone the protraction, with anyone with theory, let alone with convictions proper regarding predicate acts. Regarding predicate acts methods, they change and fake what people would say on a mass scale. There are recorded proofs clearer than day that predicate acts methods are digital crime methods and wire crime methods, collusions, and with differences of opinion of title worths and types at all locations. That self-value that as collusions, getting involved with other people's conversations dishonestly, valuing means to get away with it, valuing databases, still involved with that method from off the databases, even before computers, off the databases on our side, as a side that was still the complete possession / hyper possession of that predicate act, of that breaching method with facts method. Again, that we could discern where and how we have black people's rights of eyes in the breaching method replaced as a scientific value. Other things others themselves blame for things that nature itself and that our founders communicated to blame on the breaching method. So sickly distinctly, everyone's blaming other things others themselves or sensing for the breaching method. So in other words, this is for the Constitution unabridged and for the value of why we have and how we have rights that are too numerous to have to list them. And all the natures of debate with this have been criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions wrong, and collusion /S with things they don't even know the extent of. In other words, but they know it's fathomable if it is listed, black pupils. All we have to do is step back. In other words, but we have to do it as a species body value and or even if no one agrees now. For example, as long as the individual country or group countries are saying, look, we know we've been off the species body of individual body sciences method with values and words, and you can't entertain these. Okay, now let's jump onto the real. All the real. These are just styles and array as an acting, the same thing. So who's claimed truth and who's claimed liar? They are recorded both criminal and citizen's natures of positives and negatives, truths used for lies. And when we really come down to it, there were other names involved and a singular name, hyper singular name, a hemofactory nature breaching method that we need to name. Nature shows us that we need to give it a name. I'm not even a lawyer. There are proofs that nature shows us that we need to name this a hyper-archetypal criminal enterprise. And it measured and maintained, it recorded. Nature recorded itself using everyone through themselves, using the peak experts of the law, blaming other things other themselves that it caused. And then pretending others, showing how to make criminal enterprises grouped. Tactical ulterior from what could defend that and afford to be heard, let alone to protract short words with convictions proper regarding this predicate acts with facts method that we could discern clearer than day. Also with where and with how. The identities of the law and the people they hurt the most too, as collusions with each other, as styles and natures of logic that could only defend their logic by self-valuing criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions raw. Sciences, syntax, and use /S of that collusion /S roles. Don't change and fake what I say. Let's pay attention to the predicate acts with facts, collusion /S. We have to begin with the interbranch roles, with the foreign at the same time. But I can't write to the foreign and the overt criminal enterprises and the private ones involved and the news. They won't communicate with me. They attach me to fake conversations with themselves at the same time. And there are body dumping spots and roles with untimely deaths that were brought up at the same time. All the same people involved with child abusers, leaders, and kids' force roles. The same ones that were involved with the elderly homes programs. The difference of that. This has all natures of employments as a sick nature that can't defend itself without offensively sensing for a breaching method and preventing people from speaking on the worst natures of predicate acts, like ones that are fact-cheating nature, collusion/S with all location/S, that this breaching method has. In other words, when everyone, we're going to show that all sides of criminal and civil cases, the courts themselves, and the intelligence, the intelligence, foreign and domestic, as they are shared at campuses next to them. They're demonstrating they're supposed to hide things together, but they can't do it. Without being fakes with their differences, not by accident. Black peoples, we have the same color eyes, different color eyes at the same time. There are differences, racketeering roles, wisdom, war crimes, with people who have spoken for things like integrity, truth, law, black peoples, aggression. Black peoples. We have to ask, which trials about and slavery about simultaneously? But what things were they? True always as. And as, while not speaking about it, or nature about it. That could be or was collusion/S. See, there's a quality of fact, should be nature. That the body wants and needs when they were in that condition. Where even our founders were fact-cheating nature, tortured, extorted, and enslaved. And so we're going to switch the names too with colors. Vaccine with programming method / I'll donate it if you help me write, Judge Napolitano. This is like we can make a virtual acting agency. I don't know if it's allowed to be. If there's any laws that about this, if someone asks someone to please disregard those. In other words, I mean, so we could discuss things, so we could bring them in and design them as a nature that could heal and can be used to make positive value nature progressions, acts, and natures by the entire species at once. Otherwise, we would sense. And we're checking because that's part of how it works. Or stupid jerks are made. Many pray boxing. Boxing, martial arts, and wrestling are grouped by the same identity. That shows that the science is sharing identity, where and how they appear not to. Comes with demonstration/S of the same thing, and why and how. It is hyper additional nature. And where and how, why, how, more and more. It's method of making more and more of the identity of all space/existing through temporary/lasting space nature. Boxing, thank you. Things